Season 1 of Yellowstone introduces John Dutton, owner and operator of the Yellowstone Ranch, who is facing a potential terminal cancer diagnosis and grappling with his own mortality. John contemplates his family legacy and plans to leave the ranch to his eldest son, Lee, the Dutton child most loyal to their father. While running the ranch, John is constantly at odds with Broken Rock Reservation Chief Thomas Rainwater, who wants to reclaim Yellowstone for his Native American community. Then there's land developer Dan Jenkins, who wants to buy up and develop the ranch's land. Casey Dutton, John's youngest son, is estranged from his family and living with his Native American wife, Monica, and their son, Tate, on the Broken Rock Reservation. But when the feud between the Duttons and Broken Rock escalates, resulting in the murder of Lee Dutton at the hands of Monica's brother, Robert, Casey kills him to enact revenge. John is forced to cover up Robert's murder to protect Casey. Though their father-son relationship remains tense, and having just murdered his own brother-in-law, Casey's marriage with Monica grows strained as she fears his violent actions will impact their son. With Lee dead and rivals closing in on Yellowstone, John turns to his other children for support. His daughter Beth arrives from Salt Lake City to handle Yellowstone's business affairs and takes charge in trying to keep Dan Jenkins away from the ranch. She's also got a bit of a drinking and drug problem and falls back into an on-again, off-again romance with Rip Wheeler, a ranch hand at Yellowstone, whom John took in when he was a teenager. Jamie Dutton is a lawyer who tries to position himself as the moral center of the family, but he's not trusted by his father. Jamie feels further pushed away upon the return of Beth, with whom he has long had a contentious relationship. When the governor of Montana, Linnell Perry, offers Jamie a chance to become Attorney General, John gives his son an ultimatum: politics or family. Jamie ultimately chooses politics and is removed from the Yellowstone family business. In turn, Jamie decides to speak with a journalist looking into stories of murder and manipulation at the hands of the Dutton family. Elsewhere, Rip Wheeler is the ranch foreman who leads the branded ranch hands at Yellowstone, all willing to get their hands dirty to advance John Dutton's control. One of John's old friends asks if the ranch can take in his grandson, Jimmy, a criminal in need of a job. Rip and the other ranch hands, including Lloyd and Colby, take in Jimmy and show him the ropes, ultimately giving him a family and a purpose. As the season comes to a close, Thomas Rainwater and Dan Jenkins align in their mutual distaste for John Dutton and make plans to build a casino on Yellowstone's borders. Casey realizes that Monica and Tate would be better off without him, so he returns to the Yellowstone Ranch alone to try to protect it as a legacy to pass down to his son. Casey joins Rip and the ranch hands in unrelenting support for John, capturing Dan Jenkins and hanging him for his scheming. In Season 2, John Dutton discovers that he doesn't have cancer, but instead a ruptured ulcer. Realizing his death is not imminent, John sets his sights on holding on to his land and advancing the Dutton family legacy. He draws his estranged son, Casey, closer and entrusts him with the title of ranch foreman, drawing the contempt of the loyal Rip Wheeler. John fully reconciles with his son and shares his intentions of leaving Yellowstone to him. Casey then reconciles with Monica, and she agrees to move to the ranch with their son, Tate. Elsewhere, Jamie Dutton's campaign for Attorney General has lost all financial support due to the influential Jay's public opposition. Although Thomas Rainwater offers to back him, Jamie decides to withdraw from the race to appease his family. Regretting his decision to sell out his family's secrets to a journalist, Jamie kills the journalist and returns to the ranch a broken man, hat in hand. Meanwhile, the rivals John Dutton, Chief Thomas Rainwater, and the still-alive Dan Jenkins are forced into an uneasy alliance to thwart the attempts of the Beck brothers, a couple of villainous real estate moguls with aspirations to take over the entire area. the Beck brothers align with a group of white supremacists to try to wrestle Yellowstone from the Duttons by any means necessary. They send men to assault and kill Beth, but luckily Rip intervenes and saves her. They then send armed men to kill Dan Jenkins, who isn't lucky enough to have Rip save him. The Becks also orchestrate the kidnapping of Tate Dutton, sending the Duttons into full war mode. The vengeful Duttons and their ranch hands kill an army of white supremacists, and in the end, the father and son, John and Casey, work together to kill the Beck brothers. As the season comes to a close, John decides to write Rip into his will, emotionally recognizing him as an official member of the Dutton family. Meanwhile, Casey is reunited with his kidnapped son, Tate, bringing him home safely back to Yellowstone. Season 3 finds the Dutton family trying to move on from their past traumas and continue their simple life on the ranch. John Dutton steps down as livestock commissioner to appease Governor Perry following the violence against the Beck brothers. Now, he's free to enjoy a semi-retired life on the ranch while teaching his grandson, Tate, the ropes. In John's stead, Jamie becomes the new livestock commissioner, though his father still doesn't fully trust him. And when Jamie gets offered the interim attorney general job, Casey Dutton becomes the new livestock commissioner in his place. That's on top of Casey's responsibilities as the foreman of the Yellowstone Dutton Ranch. Casey's wife, Monica, meanwhile, begins reconnecting with her Native American roots and even strikes up the beginnings of a partnership with Chief Thomas Rainwater. Jamie Dutton's strained relationship with his sister Beth is revealed to be because of his handling of teenage Beth's abortion when they were younger. Beth sought Jamie's assistance in seeking an abortion, and Jamie decided to have her treated at a clinic, which required their patients to undergo counseling, meaning Beth is no longer able to have children. Upon this revelation, in the present, John Dutton is furious at his son, further fracturing Jamie's relationship with his family. Upon discovering that he was adopted, Jamie goes to meet his biological father, Garrett Randall, who had murdered Jamie's mother when he was a baby. Beth Dutton's work in finances with the Bank Schwartz and Mayer, and her familial ties to the Dutton Ranch, put her directly in opposition to Market Equities, a firm which wants to buy up Yellowstone Ranch and the surrounding properties to build an airport and ski resort. A representative from Market Equities is tasked with securing the deal by any means necessary, and the Duttons are offered $500 million for their property or face a legal battle that would force them out anyway. But it's not all a struggle for Beth, as she's back on again with her longtime love, Rip Wheeler, and the two get engaged. Rip, meanwhile, continues to lead the ranch hands and hires on Teeter to add a woman to the boys' club. Teeter fits right in and forms a relationship with Colby, while Jimmy strikes up a relationship with a barrel racer named Mia, who encourages him to follow his dreams of being a rodeo star. After suffering serious injuries in a rodeo event, John Dutton agrees to pay for Jimmy's medical bills in exchange for him promising to give up on rodeo and focus on being a ranch hand. But with Mia's encouragement, Jimmy gets back on the horse. The last we see of Jimmy, he's bucked off that horse and lays unconscious, his fate unknown. Rip and the rest of the ranch hands eventually have to deal with Wade Morrow, a neighboring rancher and old rival of John Dutton. Wade and his son Clint continue to escalate their rivalry with the Duttons, eventually leading them to trample Colby and Teeter to near death. Secretly, Wade and Clint are working on the orders of Rourke, who is hoping to bait the Duttons into taking illegal retaliations against the Morrows, which would help Market Equities' case in buying the Dutton Ranch. The bait eventually works, as Rip and the boys round up the Morrows, killing both father and son. As Season 3 comes to a close, the battle between the Duttons and Market Equities comes to a head. Market Equities CEO Willa Hayes has Beth fired from her job at Schwartz and Meyer, and is able to convince Jamie and Governor Perry that the airport and ski resort are in the best interest of the people of Montana. But that doesn't mean victory for the firm, as John Dutton is determined to fight for his land, and even allies himself with rival Thomas Rainwater to stop the development with a lawsuit. For Rainwater, if an airport and resort were built on the land, he'd never be able to reclaim it for his people. So an alliance between himself and John was in both of their best interests. Not content to take the battle into a long, drawn-out court case, Willa gives Rourke the go-ahead to do whatever it takes to close the development deal once and for all. As the season comes to a close, the members of the Dutton family are the targets of several assassination attempts, with Casey being attacked by armed gunmen in his office, Beth having a bomb explode in her old office building, and John being gunned down on the side of the road while helping a stranger change her tire. In Season 4 of Yellowstone, all of the Duttons survive the attacks on their lives, though some suffer worse injuries than others. Unaware of who was behind the attack, Rip takes revenge on the Duttons' current antagonist, Rourke, by killing him with a poisonous snake. As John recovers from his wounds at the hospital, Beth meets a teenage boy named Carter, who becomes an orphan after his father dies of an overdose. Beth takes Carter home to the Dutton ranch, where she and Rip take him in as they all bond. Carter reminds Rip of his own childhood and being taken in and raised by John. Beth is also hired by Market Equity's new CEO Caroline Warner, where, from the inside, Beth is able to scheme about how to prevent the firm from buying her family's land. Also recovering from his injuries is Jimmy, who, despite stern warnings from John and the best of medical experts, continues pursuing dangerous rodeo racing. John sends Jimmy to train at the 4-6's ranch in Texas to become a better cowboy. While there, Jimmy meets and falls in love with a woman named Emily. When Jimmy returns to Yellowstone with Emily as his new fiancée, John gives his blessing for Jimmy to stay in Texas permanently with his new bride and even pays off Jimmy's extensive medical bills. Elsewhere, John and Casey begin violently taking out the various hitmen involved in the Dutton assassination attempt, hoping to discover the true mastermind behind the plan. Thomas Rainwater helps John identify the man who supposedly Casey orchestrates the hit squads as an imprisoned felon. Riggins tasks him with asking Jamie for help as the Attorney General. The goal is to uncover Riggins' official prison files in the hope of gaining more information. This also serves as a test of Jamie's loyalty if he's hesitant to help Casey. It would suggest he's involved in the murder plot. Jamie agrees to assist Casey in looking into Riggins, and what he discovers shocks him. Riggins' former cellmate was none other than Garrett Randall, Jamie's biological father, who served a 30-year sentence for murdering Jamie's mother. Jamie has been growing closer to Garrett, but revelations of his violent past and his connection to the Dutton family murder plot make Jamie second-guess their relationship. Just as Jamie is ready to confront Garrett about his villainous schemes, his ex-girlfriend Christina arrives with a child she claims Jamie fathered. Jamie cautiously reconciles with Garrett and his newfound family, supporting his plans to run for governor of Montana. The current governor, Linnell Perry, informs John that she plans to run for U.S. Senate and will endorse Jamie to replace her as governor. John, who has an on-and-off romantic relationship with Perry, warns her of Jamie's disloyalty and incompetence, and confesses his own desire to run for governor. Perry publicly endorses Jamie, infuriating him. John also develops a relationship with an animal rights protester named Summer. Beth orchestrates a protest by Summer's activist group at a Market Equity site, then arranges for the police to arrive and initiate a violent assault. This creates a PR nightmare for Market Equities, resulting in Caroline firing Beth and threatening to seize her family's land and have her arrested. The protest also leads to Summer's arrest and a 14-year prison sentence for assaulting an officer. Jamie convinces the judge to reduce Summer's sentence but remains furious with Beth, threatening to kick her off the ranch. When Beth offers a sincere apology, John forgives her. Meanwhile, Casey, Monica, and Tate move into a ranch of their own, and Casey grows closer to Thomas Rainwater and his right-hand man, Mo. Monica discovers she's pregnant, but her relationship with Casey becomes strained when a former Yellowstone ranch hand, Avery, re-enters their lives and professes her love for Casey. When a wolf appears on Casey's new property, Mo encourages him to undergo a Native American ritual. After 4 days of living in the wilderness with no food or water, Casey has a vision that he believes predicts the end of his relationship with Monica. As the season draws to a close, Beth has a quick, last-minute wedding with Rip before setting her own plan into motion to ensure her family's safety. After discovering Riggins' connection to Garrett and Jamie, Beth confronts her brother and threatens to publicly disgrace or kill him if he doesn't comply with her demands. Jamie kills his biological father, Garrett, and disposes of the body while Beth takes photos of the crime. Beth then informs John that they no longer have to worry about Jamie's loyalty. She now owns him. In Season 5 of Yellowstone, John Dutton is sworn in as the new governor of Montana. His first act is hiring Beth as his chief of staff to help him shut down Market Equity's land development plan. Caroline Warner, furious over these actions, and the now Senator Linnell Perry warn John that Market Equities won't give up easily and will fight harder for the Dutton land. To strengthen his fight against Market Equities and bolster his popularity as governor, John further aligns with his former rival, Thomas Rainwater, and publicly condemns a pipeline being built on the land of the Broken Rock Reservation. Elsewhere, Monica goes into premature labor. Against Casey's advice, she attempts to drive herself to the hospital, but she gets into a car accident, resulting in the loss of the baby, which she and Casey had named John. As Casey contemplates his spiritual visions, which seem to predict the end of his relationship with Monica, he helps his wife grieve, and they grow closer. Rip and Beth continue to raise their adopted son, Carter, and teach him about life on the ranch. When wolves begin killing cattle on the Yellowstone Dutton Ranch, Rip and the ranch hands take action. However, the wolves are officially tagged as belonging to the public Yellowstone Park, and Rip and the boys are forced to cover up their illegal killings. John tasks Summer with helping him fight the court case against the wolf killings. Beth still harbors bitterness toward her father's younger lover, but Rip encourages the women to resolve their differences, leading both Beth and Summer to earn each other's respect. The ranch's cattle then become infected, and John is forced to send them off to Texas to ensure their survival. This expedition will be costly and time-consuming, with Rip leading the herd alongside many of his fellow ranch hands, including Teeter, who shares an emotional and romantic goodbye with Case, who stays behind at the Dutton Ranch. With his duties as governor taking him away for extended periods and half the ranch hands gone, John officially leaving the Yellowstone Dutton Ranch under Casey's control. Beth discovers that Jamie has a son, a secret he's kept from his family, and vows to have his custody revoked. Jamie begins an affair with Sarah Atwood, a representative of Market Equities, who convinces the resentful Jamie to use his position as Attorney General to find a loophole that would allow Market Equities to continue their Yellowstone land development. When John and Beth use their political influence to protect the Yellowstone Dutton Ranch as a national park under state jurisdiction, Market Equities convinces Jamie to publicly call for John's impeachment in exchange for their support in backing him as Montana's new governor. When Beth threatens Jamie with photographic evidence of him murdering his own biological father, Jamie remains defiant and threatens to expose the entire Dutton family's history of murder and dumping bodies in an area known as the train station. Realizing she has no power over her brother, Beth reluctantly suggests to John that they kill Jamie. Knowing his life is in danger, Jamie plans to hire professionals to have his family killed. Assassins hired by Sarah Atwood shoot John Dutton dead, staging it to look self-inflicted. John's children are devastated by his death. Despite how the shooting was staged, Beth is sure that her brother Jamie is behind this tragic act. As Rip and the ranch hands lead the cattle to the 4-6's ranch in Texas, where they reunite with Jimmy, Rip learns of John's murder and races back to Yellowstone to comfort Beth, who swears vengeance on Jamie. Jamie is distraught over John's death and regrets his involvement in having his father killed. He finds his only comfort in Sarah, who encourages him to seize the opportunity and claim the Dutton family empire for himself. Jamie convinces Montana's new governor, Stephen Rawlings, to move forward with taking the Yellowstone land using eminent domain, allowing market equities to develop it, much to Senator Linnell Perry's chagrin. Meanwhile, Casey, Monica, and Tate attempt to build their family a fresh start on the Dutton land, but John's death threatens to ruin their chance at a happy ending. Casey joins Beth's quest for revenge against Jamie and calls in his old Navy SAL friend, Cade McPherson. As Casey is pulled further into this plot, Monica begins to worry that it will tear their family apart for good. Casey convinces the medical examiner to take a second look at John's body, leading to the case being officially reopened by the police, led by Detective Dillard. Sarah grows concerned that she will be linked to the murder, but is shockingly killed by assassins to ensure her permanent silence. Cade then helps Casey track down his father's killer, the assassin Grant Horton. Instead of killing him, Casey spares his life but threatens him to never come near his family again. Detective Dillard begins investigating both John and Sarah's deaths, and while searching market equities and Sarah's property, he realizes that Jamie profited highly from market equities' Yellowstone lease, giving him a motive to kill John to ensure the deal went through. As Detective Dillard closes in on linking Jamie to John's death, Jamie seeks comfort in Christina, the mother of his child. She encourages him to publicly condemn Sarah and declare that he always loved his father and will fight to bring his killer to justice. Meanwhile, Chief Thomas Rainwater and his right-hand man Mo continue their fight to stop the building of a pipeline under their land. Unfortunately, political rival Angela Blue Thunder assures her supporters that the pipeline will be beneficial to their people, causing division among the Broken Rock Reservation. Mo leads a group to destroy the materials needed to build the pipeline, saving the Broken Rock Reservation from its inevitable corruption. Back on the Dutton Ranch, things only get worse. Beth and Rip's adopted son, Carter, gets cornered in a barn by a horse. When Colby saves him, Carter is tragically trampled to death. Everyone is devastated, Teeter most of all, further dampening spirits on the Dutton Ranch. With a legal battle against market equities brewing and a property tax bill that will bankrupt them, Beth and Casey reluctantly realize that the only way to save their family's land is to begin selling it off piece by piece. Rip tasks his old friend Travis to start selling the ranch's equipment and horses, earning enough money to keep the ranch afloat for another year. But Casey realizes that the only hope for permanent salvation ending their battle with market equities and avoiding the exorbitant property taxes is to sell the entire Yellowstone Dutton Ranch for nothing. So, Casey and Beth strike a deal with Thomas Rainwater, selling him the entire Yellowstone Dutton land. Both the Dutton family and the Broken Rock Reservation have ancestral history on this land, and under Thomas's control, he would ensure that this history is forever honored. In the agreement, Casey is allowed to keep his property on the land to live with Monica and Tate. With the Yellowstone land finally and permanently saved from villainous hands, various family and friends of John Dutton gather to hold an emotional tribute. Beth then pays a visit to Jamie, declaring that now that Broken Rock owns the land, he will never be able to steal it for himself. This leads to a brutal fight between the siblings that ends with Beth finally killing her scheming brother once and for all. Rip helps his wife cover up the death by dumping Jamie at the train station, adding one final body to Yellowstone's history of violence. In the end, the Broken Rock Reservation takes over the Yellowstone land, though the Dutton farmhouse is torn down. Thomas and Mo uphold their promise to ensure the family's legacy lives on. The various ranch hands scatter to plot their own paths, with Teeter taking a job working for Travis in Texas. Case is finally free of the burden of the Dutton family legacy to live happily ever after with his wife and son. Then there's Beth and Rip, who buy their own property away from Yellowstone to live with Carter, happily in love and ready for their next adventure.